Today we're tuning into the airwaves for a really fascinating look behind the scenes of international broadcasting.
Yep.
We've got the broadcast schedule of CGTN Radio's English service under the microscope.
That's right. And we have, well, 2 seasons worth of program listings to explore here. There's the A25 schedule, which covers, late spring and summer of 2025, specifically March 30th to October 26th, and also a schedule from the preceding B24 season.
Right, and these A and B designations, that's just broadcasting talk for their planning cycles, like spring, summer, and autumn, winter.
Exactly. It's standard practice in the industry for seasonal frequency planning.
Okay, so our mission today is really to get a handle on what these detailed schedules tell us about CGTN Radio's English programming.
Sure.
We want to uncover the kind of content they're putting out there, how they're reaching people globally using shortwaves, and just, the variety they offer.
And detailed is definitely the word. I mean, these aren't rough outlines. We're talking meticulously planned documents. You've got program names, specific times in both UTC,
Coordinated Universal Time, yeah.
and Beijing time. Plus, the exact shortwave frequencies in kilohertz and, this is key, the intended target regions for every single broadcast.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite something. Really shows the logistics behind global radio.
Okay, let's dive into this. Starting with the programming itself. One thing that jumped out at me right away was this consistent 5-minute news bulletin. Kicks off every hour.
It's like a constant feature, isn't it?
Yeah, like an anchor point throughout the day.
Exactly. It gives listeners that reliable update whenever they tune in. And beyond that, you definitely see these cornerstone programs, shows like World Today, Roundtable, The Bridge, and the Beijing Hour. They just pop up again and again.
Yeah, those feel like the big ones. They're flagships, maybe?
Seems that way. They're consistently scheduled across different times, different days. Really looks like the core of their output.
And then you notice these, well, interesting pairings, like Alight on literature, which sounds quite nice, actually.
Yeah.
It always seems to lead straight into takeaway Chinese.
Right. That's a deliberate block, you'd have to assume. Focused on language and culture.
Yeah, it really suggests they're grouping content for people interested in both the language and the cultural side of things.
It's a smart way to do it. Package it together. If someone's interested in learning Chinese, they might stick around for the literature bit or vice versa. Build that audience.
Makes sense. We also see quite a few public affairs and discussion shows listed. You've got titles like The Heat, The Agenda, World Insight, Dialogue. Clearly indicates they're tackling current events, providing discussion platforms.
Absolutely. For an international broadcaster, that's pretty essential, right? Engaging with global issues. Yeah. And the mix is interesting, too. Like, World Insight sounds maybe more analytical, whereas Dialogue suggests, well, a conversation.
Yeah, a rounded approach.
Exactly. Covering the bases on current affairs discussion.
And then there's this real mix of other stuff, some really unique titles that kind of paint a picture of just how broad they go. We've got China-Africa Talk.
Very specific focus there.
Right. Then Sideline Story. Wonder what that covers. Maybe niche sports or human interest stuff.
Could be. And Pods Plus. That sounds intriguing. Maybe about podcasts. Are you using podcast content?
Possibly. Then there's Special English, Biz Talk, Global Business.
So business and economics covered.
Yeah. Footprints, maybe travel, personal stories, The Point, the Hub, Chinese theater, even Faces of Africa. That's quite a spread.
It really is diverse. It suggests they're trying to appeal to a pretty wide range of interests internationally, not just news junkies.
Definitely.
Culture, business, specific regional focuses like with the Africa shows. It shows a strategy to connect with different segments of a global audience.
And, it's interesting comparing the two schedules we have, the A25 and the older B24 one.
Ah, yes. What did you notice there?
Well, those pairings we mentioned, like after Alight on literature. It wasn't always takeaway Chinese in the B24 schedule, or the following program was different.
Right, so it shows the schedule isn't static. They tweak things.
Exactly. It suggests they're adjusting, maybe based on what works, or changing priorities, perhaps.
That's a really key point. Broadcast schedules evolve, audience feedback, world events, strategic goals. They all play into why changes happen between seasons like B24 and A25. It's a dynamic process.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit.
Yeah.
How are they actually getting these programs out there? We mentioned shortwave.
Yes, shortwave radio. It might sound a bit old school in our, digital age.
Yeah.
But these schedules are absolutely packed with shortwave frequencies. And the reason is reach. Shortwave signals can bounce off the ionosphere.
Right, the skip.
Exactly. They can travel huge distances, reaching across continents. It's crucial for areas where, say, internet isn't reliable or ubiquitous. It's robust.
And the 825 schedule, wow, it really breaks it down geographically. It lists specific times and frequencies for, let me see, East Asia, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, the Middle East, they call it West Asia here, Europe, the South Pacific, or Oceania, North America, both East and West Coasts separately, Middle America, and then Africa, split into East, South, and North.
It's incredibly comprehensive.
It really is. The level of detail there just underlines the effort to hit specific global regions.
And it's not just broad regions. The targeting is precise. So for East Asia, like you said, there's that 06.000 to 07.00 Beijing time slot on 9590 kilohertz. That's a 31-meter band. For Europe, they list several frequencies at different UTC times. They're clearly thinking about time zones, trying to catch people at decent listening times.
Right, and they mentioned the different meter bands too, 49, 31, 25, 22, 19, 16. Can you quickly explain why the different bands matter for those of us less familiar?
Sure. Basically, different frequency bands behave differently. Lower frequencies, like the 49-meter band, tend to travel further, especially at night, but can be noisier. Higher frequencies, like the 16 or 19-meter bands, often work better during the day, maybe with clearer signals, but the distance might vary more with conditions.
Okay.
So broadcasters pick the band based on where they're aiming, what time it is there, and the atmospheric conditions they expect. It's about optimizing the signal path, choosing the right tool, basically.
Gotcha. And it's interesting, it's not just shortwave. I saw medium wave, MW frequencies listed too.
Yeah. For where?
Specifically mentioned for Southeast and South Asia, like MW 1080 and MW 1323.
Okay, that suggests a more localized approach for those areas. Medium wave signals don't travel nearly as far as shortwave.
Right.
So that's likely for reaching listeners closer by, maybe in specific cities or densely populated areas within those regions where MW is still common.
And speaking of cities, the level of detail is amazing there too. The schedule actually names specific cities: Manila, Yangon, Bangkok, Ho Chi Minh City, Phnom Penh, Vientiane.
Wow, in Southeast Asia.
Yeah. Then Canberra, Sydney, Wellington in the Pacific, and a whole bunch in Africa. Lilongwe, Kigali, Bujumbura, Harar, Lusaka, Antananarivo, Mogadishu, Kampala, Nairobi, Dar es Salaam, Addis Ababa, Djibouti.
That's quite a list.
And the Middle East too. Ankara, Baghdad, Kuwait, Amman, Damascus, Tehran, Kabul, Riyadh, Doha, Muscat, Abu Dhabi.
Okay, listing specific cities like that really points to a very focused targeting strategy, doesn't it?
It feels like it. Like they're really trying to build an audience in those specific urban centers.
It absolutely suggests that. Could be for various reasons, maybe existing ties, cultural exchange programs, or just focusing on major population hubs within those broader regions.
And going back to the older B24 schedule, it specifically listed frequencies for Cuba.
Ah, interesting.
That's pretty explicit targeting for that period.
No kidding. That highlights a very deliberate focus on reaching Cuba during that particular season. Reflects specific geopolitical or cultural aims at that time, most likely.
So let's talk time zones for a minute. They list both UTC and Beijing time.
Which is essential, really.
Yeah. For the listener, obviously, you need to convert to your local time.
Right. But from the broadcaster side, it shows their planning is likely centralized around Beijing time, while UTC provides that universal standard for global coordination.
And it's clear they're thinking about local times in the target areas.
Yeah.
Like there's that 000002.000 Beijing time slot aimed at Southeast Asia.
Okay.
And the schedule even notes the local times, like for Laos and Vietnam, which range from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., or even 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., depending on where you are in that zone.
See, that's a perfect example. They're clearly timing broadcasts to hit likely listening periods, commutes, evenings, whatever works best locally.
To fit into people's daily routines.
Exactly. Maximize the chance someone will actually tune in.
And finally, just touching on the fact we have these two distinct schedules. A25 for March, October 2025, B24 compiled back in 2024. It just reinforces that these plans get updated regularly.
Yes, the A and B seasons show it's a cycle. Frequencies, maybe even timings, aren't set in stone year-round. There are lots of reasons for that changing atmospheric conditions affect shortwave propagation significantly. There are international agreements about frequency use.
Oh, okay.
And, of course, strategic shifts in programming or target audiences we talked about earlier. They need to adjust.
So, wrapping this up, this deep dive, it really shows CGTN Radio's English service is, well, a pretty complex machine. they're delivering a genuinely diverse range of programs. You've got the news, current affairs, but also lots of culture, business, specific interests.
Absolutely. It suggests a strategy to reach a broad international audience, offering more than just headlines.
And their heavy reliance on shortwave. That's a major commitment to global reach, isn't it? Hitting places maybe the internet doesn't easily reach.
It definitely underscores that. And the sheer detail in the scheduling, the frequencies, the target cities, it points to a very deliberate and strategic approach to international broadcasting.
Yeah, that level of detail in the schedules, it's kind of remarkable. It gives you this unique peek behind the curtain at the logistics involved.
It really does. Makes you appreciate the planning needed to send signals across the globe, coordinating for all those time zones and regions using, a technology that requires careful management.
So here's a final thought then for you listening. Thinking about this incredibly specific scheduling, the frequencies, the cities, what might that tell us about who CGTN Radio is trying to reach and what their bigger strategic goals might be?
Yeah, and maybe what does this strong continued use of shortwave radio suggest about reaching certain parts of the world today, even with everything else available?
Definitely something to think about.